I've been looking forward to this conversation for a long time. It is Will O'Toole. He is senior coordinating producer, Pac-12 Network. He is a proud Michigan alum. Let's
Yes.
make that very clear. And he has won Emmys nationally with New York, Los Angeles, formerly of NBC Sports, ABC Sports, and SNY. We're going to talk about his career. This is the On to Something podcast. I'm Bryan Fenley, a national anchor at Fox Sports Radio, tennis volleyball broadcaster as well. This could be a really fun conversation where we look into the psyche of Will and what has led to his successes. So this is going to be not just a superficial thing. We're going to tell some great stories. I enlisted the trusty advice of one of Will's colleagues and Ashley Adamson to help frame the questions here or some of the insights. So we're going to have a lot of fun
Oh
right
boy.
away here. And now Will is getting a little, he's blushing because he's not sure where we're going with this conversation. Will, I appreciate you first and foremost for coming on here. And Ashley was telling me, now she shares an office with you,
Yes.
that the name of the office is the Passion Princess Lounge. How did this come about?
This is true. So we've moved around a few times in the building here. Ashley and I got a beautiful corner office on the second floor. She's kind of the face of the network, and I do a lot of the production behind the scenes. And actually, she was out for a vacation in Sun Valley, Idaho. She and JB Long, he does the Rams radio broadcast and is also a longtime Pac-12 Networks announcer. And they were actually out in Sun Valley on vacation where my home is. They came by my home and spent the 4th of July there, kind of impromptu get together. And while we were chatting, we were talking about the new office and the space there. And the topic came up about, I think it was drinks you get at dinner. And my taste has always been the more fruity, perhaps some might call it the more girly drink. And that's just kind of my taste. We were laughing about that. And I think it came up that a good name for that type of cocktail was the Passion Princess cocktail, and it just rolled into the Passion Princess Lounge. So that's what we stuck with.
I heard somebody brought a lava lamp in that office. Is that you?
This is true. That was my welcome to the Passion Princess Lounge gift for Ashley. And I know Bill Walton was sitting in there on Pac-12 Media's Day, and he sat down at my desk, and I think he was a big fan of the lava lamp.
I'm sure he was. Will O'Toole is with us. I'm Bryan Fenley. And so you've had the opportunity. You and Ashley were with Pac-12 Networks from the start, and you've seen the passion and all of the different determination and desire she has in this business, and what an awesome person she is. How has she impacted the way in which you do your job based upon your relationship with her and how good she is at her job?
Ashley is extremely talented at her job, and I've had the good fortune to write a lot of things for her and collaborate with her on a lot of things. For instance, we're kicking off our 10th year of the network this year, and she's been here since the start. I have as well. And just kind of put down, how much can go on in a decade. And she feels that she knows that she's been here through it all. So kind of being able to write for her to speak and collaborate is a nice partnership. It's a nice partnership to have. And like you said, the passion is what drives people around here. She is our lead voice in basketball. She is our lead voice in football. It is a pioneering position to be in. I don't know of another network where a woman is the face of football, basketball, and essentially the entire network. And her work ethic is contagious. You have to have passion around here in order to pull off the grand scale of what we do. You have to care. You have to want to pull in the same direction as everybody else. It can't be undermining. But there's a seriousness too on show day, on game day. There's a game face and a game way to prepare, and it's infectious. And everybody wants to put on a good show, and she is front of the line as far as I'm concerned.
Oh,
Wanting to do that.
she's as talented and as classy as can come. Speaking of putting on a game face, what is your game face like when you're like we see behind you in the studio during a live broadcast?
It depends on the broadcast, depends on the day. As you know, we're 7 networks here. We're not just one. We may have as many as 13 live events in a day across 7 networks. All of that traffic may be colliding, things may be going along. It is a lot of traffic to organize. It's a lot of voices in your head. But it is also not life or death. Like we want to prepare. We want to put on the best show we can. We want to make sure that we've done everything we can to, make that a reality. And then when things go wrong, things fall apart, it's live TV. You need to be able to roll with it and not take it too seriously. I've been in shops where it is treated like life or death, and then I've been here where you take a more relaxed approach. You address issues in a more calm manner. It's just there's a seriousness about it. When I'm producing a live event, it is even more ratcheted up. But in here, this is home. I just kind of flow with it, because if you're going to get too worked about up about any little thing that happens here, it's going to be overwhelming. You have to have some flow.
So earlier in your career, you were an associate producer with NBC Sports,
I
and the
was.
first thing that comes to mind is the NBA jingle leading into a broadcast, knowing that
Yes.
that has to be, Will, the best lead up into a broadcast. What was your experiences like there with NBC Sports, and what comes to mind when you think of that little tune that is played over and over again, and it just
First of
it's so
all,
much passion.
yes, I love that jingle. John Tesh wrote that.
Oh,
Yes, a little piece of knowledge there. That's a John Tesh jingle, and I think he still gets royalties for that. So he wrote that. It is up there. The most impactful music I've heard to open a show is the actual Olympic theme. Like working on an Olympics when Bob Costas is in the control room and that theme rolls, your heart kind of pounds a little bit differently. The NBC days when NBA was on NBC, and that was the show to watch, the triple headers on the weekends. That was a fun time. NBC had a great budget. We would fly all over the country. You would spend all week trying to make one NBA broadcast with your team the very best it could be. It was a golden age for NBC Sports, NBA on NBC, and a lot of fun. A great place to get my career started.
and then your career took the next step at ABC Sports, and you were there as a producer and as a feature producer. So, who were some of the most memorable people you spotlit and you looked at, and those that you worked around?
So I did some pretty interesting things for ABC Sports. I was in their control room in Times Square working the college football Saturday show. I got to work the Alpine World Championships in skiing, Wimbledon, and the French Open. So some really unique opportunities there. I guess the most impactful person that I met along the way was my wife, who is a an Olympian. That was actually at NBC Sports, though. That was prior to the ABC Sports run. So we'll get there. But I think
Yeah.
the most memorable, there were a couple good ones. The most memorable event at ABC Sports was probably in 2005. We would always end our golf season at the British Open, wherever that was. And that it was going to be Jack's last major. So they moved it to St. Andrews. So we all went over to St. Andrews. Absolutely beautiful, incredible course. Jack finishes on Friday, and I'm on 18 green as he does his walk up for his final, walk up 18 to say goodbye to the crowd. Scotland's going crazy. He birdies out, hugs his son, who was his caddy, and I'm inside the ropes and got to bring him into Mike Tirica right there. That
Wow.
was kind of so I got to stand there on 18 green and watch him do his whole walk up and his farewell on Friday, which was incredible. And then 2 days later, Tiger is going to win. He's kind of running away with it. My work in the truck was done. So myself and a PA got to go out and kind of finish, see how this was going to all wrap up. So we go to the 17th green, and Tiger's coming through. And then we go around, watch him putt out and go around to 18T. And I had all the credentials and everything. So the police officer was just like, hey, go on through. We walk up, watch Tiger tee off, and then they close the ropes behind us. So we're now inside the ropes on 18 at St. Andrews on Championship Sunday, and the whole group starts walking up the first half of 18 fairway, and the crowd gets to their feet to cheer Tiger on, and we're kind of walking with everybody that's moving up the fairway there. So I just closed my eyes for a couple seconds and listened to it, pretended it was all for me. Uh, and then we could have really walked right up to the green, but he hit his approach shot and they closed off the ropes. And I was like, okay, this is a cool experience, but this is where we have to stop. And that was just kind of a neat being in the moment, lucky circumstance. That was a really memorable ABC Sports experience.
When it comes to a neat being in the moment circumstance, let's go to, and you brought this up just a moment ago, Will, the way in which you met your wife. There's a
Yes.
big story behind this.
There is. So when I first started with NBC Sports, one of the reasons that I got in was because I was familiar with skiing and they always do the Olympics. And the producer that was working my NBA package also did tennis and then the Alpine World Championships. So the first World Championship that I went to was in St. Anton, Austria in 2001. And one of the women that was working for us was a liaison who used to be on the US ski team. There was a lot of snow, so things got shut down. And Alpine World Championships in these Austrian villages are just a big party. It's it's exactly what you would imagine it to be. So the girl that was working with us, Carrie Schoenberg, introduced me to a few people on the US ski team and some others that were hanging out. And I just happened to, you know, hit it off with a John Mendez who was on the ski team, kind of a young up and comer. And we stayed in touch after that. Decided, when we got back to the States, maybe we'd stay in touch. She actually went back, won a national championship, and then broke her leg at the very end of the year. And I was going home to work NBA and then head over to Europe for the French Open. And I knew she couldn't do much or go anywhere. And we had kind of hit it off. So I was like, if you're not doing anything, come over to Paris. And she got on her crutches and gave it a go. And we went over there and had a European vacation. And here we are 20 years later.
How many dates have you had with her while skiing?
While she was skiing,
Or
I actually
even anytime, yeah, she's been skiing.
lots of there was a lot of courtship and there was actually a lot of work too. Like I covered her at the St. Anton World Championships in 2001, in Salt Lake in 2002 at the Olympics, and in St. Moritz in 2003 at the World Championship. So it's kind of neat when your girlfriend and then future wife is up there on all the monitors in the truck. It's a whole different level of engagement.
In how many ways, and there's so many, but what are the ways that stand out to you, Will, that you admire your wife?
She is a gamer, she has heart, she has passion, she sinks her teeth into things. She certainly harnessed my potential and energy and got that organized, which is not an easy task. She's a great mom. She thinks of others, she allows me to do what I need to do to, have the freedom to help build this place and be away. And it's a lot of give and take over there. So just, admire her passion.
How has being a father helped you with your job?
Oh, put everything in perspective. It's the hardest thing you'll ever do. It's the most rewarding thing you'll ever do. It makes everything else, for good reason, seem a little bit less important sometimes. Some of the things that you put your time and energy and, you think are so important don't matter when you're dealing with matters of the heart for your family and your child and their welfare. And I think it's just a matter of perspective. You think you're working hard, you think you're doing hard things, then you have a kid and you realize it was nothing close to hard.
That kid that you have happens to be a really good skier.
He is a good
How
skier.
soon until we see him in the Olympics?
Well, that is a very, very small percentage of people that achieve that, right? There were four women on each team that Jana made, which is four out of the whole country. He has talent, and maybe he could do that. And if he has the passion to love it the way he will need to, maybe he could do that. But we don't put a whole lot of pressure on him or speak in those terms, even just kidding around. We want him to not specialize in just skiing right now. We want there to be soccer and baseball and other things. Um, we'll see where it goes. He's only 11. He's got talent. He loves it. He knows his mom was pretty good, but yeah, no pushing there.
You're not putting too much pressure on him, but in your pursuit of your drive of what you're doing in sports media, where do you find yourself putting the most pressure on yourself to thrive and succeed like you have?
I am a bit of a perfectionist sometimes. I really want things to go well. And when there's one bad graphic or one format item wasn't handled, or you didn't think of every little piece in advance, then you're kind of exposed a little bit, especially if it's on television. So My drive is to get it right the first time. Try and get as close to 100% on every quiz as you can, which every show is a quiz, and one bad graphic, that could wind up on Twitter. So the passion is to do a good job, and it also comes from the people that I work with. It is the more you move through the business, the more I place value on the people you work with, that camaraderie. I understand that's a little bit cliche, but when you find it and it really is there, you want to kind of hold on to it, work hard for those people.
Those people that you were with at the beginning, at the launch, and the relationships that you've developed with them, what is that bond like, knowing those who are still with you and have seen the network grow and transform and evolve in so many ways since its inception?
It is family. I mean, these people have come to my home in Idaho. We celebrate the births of children. Sharing tragedy. One of the founding members of the network, Leon Schweier, one of the developers of the whole internet protocol way of producing things, passed recently, and he was a good friend and a colleague and a mentor to all of us. So we see the highs, we see the lows, but there's care, there's passion, there's care, and it started with a core group: Ashley, myself, Kyle, Zora, some real great ones along the way that are still here, Bob Schmelsley, so many others, and then some real key players along the way, addition by addition, and maybe some addition by subtraction along the way. And when it feels right, it makes all the challenges more palatable and easier to overcome.
Will O'Toole is with us. I'm Bryan Fenley. So you oscillate between being in the Bay Area with keeping an eye on everything Pac-12 networks, and then in Sun Valley, Idaho as well. How is Sun Valley, Idaho, and being there an escape for you?
It is an amazing escape. I was in New York City coming up through my career. I was always thought that that's where people went to work, and my friends are still there. My wife, being from Tahoe, did some traveling from New York when she was still skiing, and she knew that I was more of a mountain man hidden in there. She said, "I just got to get you out to the mountains, and then you'll see." Um, and we had ideas on the Bay Area, and I had an eye on the Pac-12 networks as it was being discussed. And we had our 8-month-old son and just knew we wanted to be out of New York. So we went west, and she got a call from somebody in Sun Valley, an old ski connection. They said, "Come out here. We're starting a ski program with this really good high school. We'll give you a little apartment to stay in. Your son could go to the school. Why don't you come out and give it a look?" And this was when we were still traveling, kind of living nomad life. And she went out there. They gave her a good sales pitch, and I was in Oregon at the in-laws with my son. She said, "This is amazing. Let's do it." And I moved to Sun Valley sight unseen, and I connected with that place almost immediately. I could see how good it was for the family, and it's the cleanest air in the world, and it's just beautiful. It's everything. The city has so much to offer, and it has my career to offer that is not available in Sun Valley. But when you want to get away, and you want to get away from the hustle and bustle and really get out to a place where you don't hear any noise from humans, you are able to do that there, and that's a good source of peace for me, especially
The
when this is the rest.
yes, you've got you work hard, and then you allow yourself that escape as well. You've got that harmony that you work. And if you go to Sun Valley, obviously, like you said, the nature is incredible, the scenery. And I've noticed that you have turned yourself into quite the great photographer. Where did those skills come from?
Well, thank you, first of all. That was, when we were moving west, my wife got me a gift. I think it was for her birthday, and it was just a digital camera. And I started winding up in these really beautiful places. And I just started bringing it around with me and taking little lessons. And then when I got to Sun Valley and really started getting out, it's motivating for me to, sometimes you don't want to climb 3 hours up to a basin. It's a lot of hard work. But if you're going to go up there and get a beautiful picture or maybe check out the scene, it gives you a little extra push. So I use it to get me out there. And then it has become something. I like things that you can continue to develop at, continue to get better at, continue to progress, and it's definitely one of those things. But
What
thank you.
would be that beautiful picture that encapsulates your 10 years at the Pac-12 Network?
Ooh, that's a good question. What would the picture be? I think it would be that encapsulates the 10 years so far, it would be a picture of passion. It would probably be a picture in this room of a moment of achievement on the court that you could see in hundreds of monitors, and that being palpable to the people in the control room. Something unexpected, because in my view, sports are the greatest reality show that will ever be because of how unscripted it is and how much passion there is. And it'll probably be a moment that ties the passion of the people in the control room with the student athletes. And that's what we do. We try and make those connections. And that would probably be it.
How about your career? And certainly, we want it to all be scripted a certain way, but it usually, in ways, can be unscripted, and it is quite the reality show. What came your way that was unexpected?
The entire experience was unexpected. I'm not a big believer in I'm getting from point A to point B in a straight line. I know that you work hard to get in the direction and the direction will kind of reveal itself to you. The biggest surprise to me, I was at ABC Sports and I thought I was going to be there for a long time and I really enjoyed. I got to work with, Musburger on the big football game and some really cool stuff. And I remember the day that ESPN decided that they were going to hold a conference call. It had always been ABC Sports kind of being the lead voice in that conversation. They explained to everybody that the new brand was going to be ESPN on ABC and ABC Sports was going to be no longer a thing, that the main operation was going to go to Bristol. And that one, changed the career trajectory for me. I wasn't going to go to ESPN in Bristol if I could stay in New York. And then Sportsnet New York had launched at the same time. They brought Kurt Gowdy Jr. over from ABC Sports, the Mets channel, and it was a great opportunity. So it was kind of a surprise and a curveball and changed the career trajectory, but led to some great opportunities and ultimately led me here.
Well, who knew your career would go this way? Because in college, your degree was philosophy.
Yes.
How much does that degree come in handy with what you do today?
It actually comes in handy quite a bit in this business and elsewhere. I think a logical progression, having reasons and order for the way things unfold, and being able to explain why those are the decisions that you are making or think they're the right ones to be made. That holds up in just about any business if you're doing that correctly. There is a little bit of having to be able to read people and treat everybody differently and a sense of what drives people. Maybe that's more psychology than philosophy, but I think it's really just having reasons for why you do things, having like exploring the counter opinion and exploring the reasons that people have for a counter opinion, poking holes in that, and then proceeding with your decision.
When I was talking to Ashley, she said something about bring up the Moscow meal.
The
Did I say that?
Moscow, the Moscow Mule.
Mule, mule,
Yes.
mule. What is she getting at there? She said, make sure that you bring that up to Will.
Well, I do make a pretty good Moscow Mule. It's considered one of the best in the Sun Valley. There's a little trick to that, but it's the copper cup, the right ice, the right ginger beer, and some fresh lime. So that's a summertime thing. That's a July 4th thing.
Would you consider, and we're joined by Will O'Toole, I'm Bryan Fenley, that when you consider where you are, and then when you look at where you started, where does your pride come in? When you think about where you've come, where you've achieved, or where you've gone, and you think about where you thought you would be maybe when you got into the business and where you are today?
That's a really good question. I think a lot of my pride comes from what we've achieved here at the Pac-12 Networks. I was able to be a lead voice from the very start and create culture and create the programming and create the graphics look and work with the team to do all of that stuff. I was tasked with overseeing a very vast Olympic landscape, and one of you know, the MOs was to try and shine a light on Olympic sports and women's sports. And I had worked only at the actual Olympics when dealing with a lot of these sports. And one of the diamonds in the rough that kind of materialized right away was gymnastics. Like Utah Gymnastics has 13,000 fans show up at their event. UCLA Gymnastics They have all the Showtime flair and a really passionate fan base. And I was like, okay, so this is one that I could really elevate and really shine a light on. And I think it was our second year, and there were a bunch of Olympians returning to UCLA. I put a little extra into that show just to see what we could achieve, and we were able to win the network's first Emmy out here. And I've won Emmys nationally and in New York, and a lot of people don't put a lot of stock in them, and I don't either. But when we were able to take women's sport in the LA market and go against the Lakers, the Clippers, the Dodgers, whomever, and in our second year, when so much else was going on behind the scenes, get the best live event Emmy in LA for a women's sport that doesn't get a lot of eyeballs traditionally. I was very proud of that. And people kind of were like, oh, that's pretty good achievement. And then we did it again a couple years later in LA again with a women's gymnastics event. And that one, I don't put a lot of stocks in trophies or anything like that, but that one felt like some validation and some justification for what the goal was. And with everything going on behind the scenes, we could put on a great show no matter what hand we're dealt.
What was right about your strategy in elevating those events that you thought really caught others' attention?
It's a similar strategy to a lot of live events. Certainly do all of your homework. Don't be surprised by anything. Know exactly what's going on with the event, around the event, consume the information like a fan. Know where to put the extra few dollars you might have tucked away on the season. Get a nice super slow-mo camera on, say, a Madison Cochin, who is an Olympian coming back, to make sure that looks as spectacular as it can be. Tell the right stories, set the scene correctly, tell the right stories, give people a reason to be passionate and engaged and watch, and then hopefully it's a flawless show.
So you have all these polished shows and you watch a lot of sports and you have to work in the control room a lot. If you sit down and you're watching a sporting event with your son, and let's say that this was something that you worked on, and you're with him in that moment, experiencing that with him, what are you feeling?
I am feeling pride. He is
Yes.
starting to understand what dad does, and he's starting to hear that it's pretty cool. Um, I don't drive people nuts by sitting there watching a sporting event, being like, "Oh, that replay should be this. That was. Look at see that graphic." I could do that all day probably. Um, but he's getting into football and baseball and watching these things on TV, and he's got tons of questions, tons of good questions. I'm a fan, but I'm also a TV producer, so I don't know, I just try and absorb what he's asking and what his take is on the whole thing and kind of impart wisdom where I can. It's a lot of what are the rules? Like, why did they do that? Has there ever been a punt block that went out of the end zone? And then it's like, wow, you're really getting into the nitty gritty here.
Will O'Toole, I'm Bryan Fenley. So my final question with you, and this has been so much fun looking at your career and
I
talking about
appreciate it.
your successes and shout out, of course, to Ashley Adamson for giving me some insights on you. It was fun. We got on a phone call on Friday. She's someone I look up to a lot. She's been awesome.
She's the best. Yeah.
Yeah, and being able because I really wanted to dig into some cool stuff with you. But what are you like on the slopes in skiing? What would I see? What kind of Will O'Toole am I seeing?
You're seeing probably the best Willow tool, on the right snow day, on the right hill, you'll see somebody who is really kind of in their zone and getting after it. Maybe some headphones on, kind of some tunnel vision, don't want to hear any monitors, don't want to hear anything. I like to get out in nature, and my wife's an Olympian. I can't be the slouch in the family. I got to keep bringing it.
I feel like there's some playful pressure there to live up to her standards, and
No
no one,
question.
yeah, and your son is there, and anything that the O'Tooles are around, they do at such a high level. You're in the zone, Will. When you ski, you're in the zone in the control room. Anything you apply yourself with, you're in the zone, and so no wonder whatever you do is very successful. Will O'Toole, really appreciate your time. Of course, senior coordinating producer, Pac-12 Networks, a proud Michigan alum after this latest win that they had over the weekend. No question about it. I'm Bryan Fenley with Fox Sports Radio. Will, appreciate this, man. This was a lot of fun.
Brian, it was super fun. Congrats on all the success.